Life Audio.
So what if your child could learn animation from someone who brought Tarzan, The Emperor's New Groove, and The Polar Express to life? Today's guest is not only a world-class animator, but also a homeschooling dad of 8 who has spent the past 2 decades blending creativity, storytelling, and education in his own home. Welcome to Empowering Homeschool Conversations. I'm your host, Peggy Ployer, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to Chad Stewart, a veteran Disney and Sony animator with over 30 years of experience in the animation industry, from hand-drawn classics like Fantasia 2000 to digital wonders like Stuart Little 2 and Surf's Up. Chad's work has touched millions, but behind the scenes, he's also been investing in something even more meaningful, his family. Chad and his wife recently completed their 20-year homeschooling journey with 8 children, and he's now combining his professional skills and personal passion in teaching animation to the next generation from his comfort of his own home. In this episode, we'll explore how creative subjects like animation can ignite passion and purpose in learning, how parents can support kids with artistic talents, and how Chad's journey from Disney to the homeschool world may inspire your own path. Welcome to the show, Chad.
Thanks, Peggy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This is great. So I have to give the preface that my daughter has taken online classes with you when she was younger. She's now 20, and but she told me that the feedback that she got from you really helped her with her artistic skills, and so just want to share that with you and. Just let you know that you are making huge impacts, and I've heard that from other people who have used your program. So it's exciting to see these budding artists and how they can just hone those skills.
I really love hearing that kind of feedback. We have a lot of students who just come in and they just want to explore and be creative, and to me, sometimes when you get into the professional world, that spark gets lost. And It's so much fun to hear from students that they take the feedback and they can grow and they can create and do all these things, but it doesn't have to necessarily be super serious.
Right. Yeah. I think that's why my daughter ended up not pursuing a career in art, was because she loved it so much. And she actually said to me at one point, she goes, I don't want that to die. But what a good perspective to have that as like a 16-year-old and say, I love doing art and I don't want to lose that love. So I'm going to go into something else and then I'm going to keep doing art. Yeah. And maybe, we'll see where that goes. She's going into library science now. And yeah, so I said, well, then you can work in an archive at an art studio. And that's kind of where her pursuit is going. But yeah, it's still good to know, a lot about art and how it's made and created and in that line of work as well. So just never know. Yeah. So let's start with your animation journey. How did you get into the world of animation and what were some of the highlights from your time with Disney and Sony?
Okay. Well, so I can remember being in a movie theater. I don't remember how old I was, but I was watching Sleeping Beauty, and I remember being uncomfortable because my arms wouldn't reach to the armrest, and being absolutely fascinated with the dragon. And after the movie was over, talking to my mom about, well, how did they make this? And she told me that they drew it. And I thought that made no sense because I immediately envisioned people up on ladders on this big screen, like drawing massive drawings. But from that point on, animation and drawing, I always just gravitated toward it. I loved the silliness of cartoons, and I loved Bugs Bunny and Saturday morning cartoons. And for a while, that was just kind of all it was until I hit 6th grade. And you start thinking, okay, what are you going to do? That question gets asked.
And we ask our kids the same thing. Yeah.
Right. And so it was still, baseball player or, and this idea of, well, there's people that can do this. And we had gone on a family trip to Los Angeles and went to Disneyland. And my mom, again, great influence here.
Right, exactly.
And she called Disney Studios and said, well, my son might want to be an animator. Where would he go to school? How would he do that? And this was back in the 80s. And at the time, there was only one college in the U.S. that had an animation program, and it's a college that's still there today called California Institute of the Arts. And it was actually set up by Walt Disney himself in the late 1960s to train animators to go.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So many of the key big names in animation right now went to that school because it was the only place to go back then. So I thought, okay, well now it's very simple. I know where I want to go to college. I know to go through all of this, and I know what I want to do. And obviously, that there is a bumpy road. I it took me 3 tries to get into that college.
Wow.
To get serious about becoming an artist, I had to take art classes, and then once I did get in, so I my first year at CalArts was the fall of 1989, just a few months before The Little Mermaid came out. And those few years before that had been really a lot of growing in the animation world. But the 90s is now considered the Disney Renaissance. And so God was very gracious to me, and my timing was amazing because from that point on, from The Little Mermaid, hand-drawn animation for the next 10 years was just, there weren't enough animators. And so, so a lot of other studios that had not been doing animation started to get back into it. There were a lot more TV shows. And so that's when, you know, the kind of going from show to show, and there were a lot of different jobs and a lot of different opportunities. And then I got to Disney in 96. So I'd done some other films before that, like Cats Don't Dance and The Page Master, which were done by Turner. And then got to Disney. And so I had wanted to be a Disney animator since I was a kid. To actually be doing it was probably the highlight, because once you get in, it was a lot of hard work. And I learned a ton. But it's probably one of the hardest jobs I've had in animation.
Wow.
But these films that I was able to work on have had such a great following and such a great life after being there. And to really be a part of the hand-drawn legacy of Disney, because I was kind of at the very, very end of it. And that still to me is very, very special to be a part of that. That's
cool. Yeah. And I love that your mom was the one who, you know, kind of gave you that nudge and that push, and she saw something in you that could be cultivated. And I think as homeschool moms, we don't realize how influential some of the things that the little things that we say, the things that we pick out about our kids, that we kind of point out to them. My husband has a similar story about his career path, and his mom making a comment going, well, you know, you love computers, and you know, him going, is there a career in that? And now we think that's hilarious, but you know, when not back in the mid 80s, I mean, you just didn't. And so, yes, but mothers, we have the ability to speak and question and help our kids kind of process a lot of things that they don't even know are within them. And so yeah, I love that your story brings that out. And
I'm actually going to interview my mom later on today to be able to show, because so many, we talk to so many parents, and specifically mothers, who just have such a heart to help their kids and they want to encourage them, but this is a world that they don't understand. And and now it's so much bigger than animation, so much bigger and a little bit more stable than when I got into it, when it was much smaller. And so to talk to my mom about, well, what did you how did you do that? How did you balance that? But yeah, I that support both my parents, but specifically my mom, always were very, very encouraging. And I think it sort of transferred over to me thinking, well, if they think I could do it, I guess I could do it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And they say now, you talked about, this field, this emerging field. I think a lot of times we feel like we need to push our kids towards fields that are stable because we want them to be stable. But the fact is now they're saying that kids will probably have 7 careers in their lifetime, the ones that are graduating high school right now. And so they are going to have to enter those emerging places. I remember when I graduated from college, I entered a field that there was no degree for. and so I had a degree in physics that, filled that void. But now you can get a degree as a biomedical engineer. My son did. But that was the field I went into. But back then they didn't offer that degree. So things just change, and we have to be willing to really show our kids, where they're called and to back them in those places, even though it may be unstable. Yeah,
it's such a hard thing. But as you were talking, my first thought is there any job that's stable right now?
Right. Exactly.
It is. It's hard. But the idea of there's so many things. We're such a visual world, and there's so many visual learners, but it just seems like we're really leaning into that. There's so much media, so many different ways, and animation plays a role in many of these different fields, even that haven't quite been figured out yet.
We will continue this conversation after a short break.
Hey there, parents. Are you tired of the babysitter search struggle? Look no further. Welcome to KingdomCareSitters.com, where Christian families connect with like-minded sitters who share their faith.
I was searching for a reliable sitter who understands our faith and family dynamics. With KingdomCareSitters.com, I found the perfect match.
And guess what? You can discover sitter profiles, post jobs, and even schedule and book short-term or long-term care, all on the user-friendly website, KingdomCareSitters.com.
Plus, KingdomCareSitters.com lets you pay securely online. Whether it's date night, work commitments, or just some me time, Kingdom Care's got you covered.
As a sitter, I love being part of this community. I set my own rates, connect with amazing families, and make a difference in their lives.
Are you ready to find your perfect match? Visit KingdomCareSitters.com today, because when faith meets childcare, it's a match made in heaven.
For some of us, personal finances aren't just personal. They include loved ones, neighbors, the communities we call home, and the causes we hold in our hearts. At Thrivent, planning your finances is bigger than just money. We help you put your plans into motion and faith into action so you can do more for the ones in your heart. Because sometimes all you need to make a difference is someone to help you make it happen. Thrivent, where money means more. Connect with us at Thrivent.com.
This is Empowering Homeschool Conversations, provided by SPED Homeschool, a nonprofit that empowers families to home educate diverse learners. To learn more, visit spedhomeschool.com.
Yeah, and I love that you talk about visual learning, because you and your wife have homeschooled for 20 years, and that's just incredible. How did your work in animation and knowing that we are such a visual society affect your home education?
So it's a good question. Yeah, I mean, we had with 8 kids, and 4 were adopted, and so they're so different. I mean, every kid is different.
Yeah.
And so I think Kayla, my wife, was very good at trying to find what was the best way for them to learn. And so I think for me, I'm a little more one track. It's like I'm visual, so I think visual. So, but especially as when they're younger, I think visual learning, books and illustrations and all of those things kind of come in to play. And that was, to me, the thing. I could draw a quick sketch and I could spark an imagination an idea with them, or I could, read a book and do the voices and picture it in my head and hope they were picturing it too. And so those, I think, just kind of naturally flowed out.
Yeah. And I found myself doing voices and things, and I didn't even have any acting experience. It's just, you knew that you would hold their attention a lot longer if you did something other than just like monotone read something. Right. Yeah. So yeah, we all kind of, and I discovered through homeschooling my kids that there was this inside performer that I never knew existed. So I think homeschooling like stretches even, things that we never even knew we had within us, because we are on the spot. Like you said, if you have to sketch something out, or you may have like sketch something you never had to sketch before for a job, because you're trying to explain it to a child that, doesn't get it, or or maybe you create a face that, just was very different than a face you ever drew. I found my kids, I had one child who had such a hard time reading that I ended up reading an entire 101 elephant jokes book and putting it on an audio cassette so he could listen to it when he went to bed, because he wanted to memorize the whole book. He did memorize the book, and I was glad I only had to read it once, because he listened to it hundreds of times. Wow. But yes. So, but you had to get the punchline right, and so I had to get really good at, that pause, because he would copy it verbatim.
Okay. So you're still hearing the cadence, even if you're not the one
right.
reading it. Right.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, that definitely will stretch any gifting you have when you're homeschooling your kids, for sure. And that's great. You pointed out something with your wife, Kayla, too, is as we approach homeschooling as a unified couple, my husband has gifts that I don't have. And it was so nice to be able to say, well, this is definitely something that, I think would be much better in your wheelhouse. And so the two of you to work together, and especially having 8 kids, that's a lot to juggle. So great that you had that teamwork through those years.
Yeah. And she's an amazing teacher, an amazing administrator, and an amazing mom. So
yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So what inspired you to start teaching animation online to kids?
So it was honestly Kayla. It was her idea. So when we grew our family to a point that we had 8 kids, and I had been working in the studios for about 20 years. We were living in LA, and I love LA, and I love the studios, and I love all of that. But it's a lot of work, and it's pretty intense. And so I went freelance. I started working independently as an independent contractor for different studios, and doing different advertisements and different things. And we were kind of going back and forth trying to figure out how to make all that work. And we moved up to Washington State, where we are now. Okay. Now, just with everything that happens in family and medical insurance and all of those different things. So, we were trying to figure out the best way to kind of stabilize our income. And at a certain point, we went back to Los Angeles just for a short amount of time to take a job. And in that brainstorming, she said, I think if you started an online course, we would get a lot of interest. And I said, really? She goes, yeah, because there's students who are talking to you all the time, or talking to me, trying to, we would have someone who knew someone who's
right. Yeah, the homeschool world is like that, isn't it?
Right. So we thought, okay, well, it could be. I honestly thought it would be in a sort of a supplement. I'd kind of do it on the side and freelance, and within 2 weeks of her just putting it out on her Facebook, we had 60 students, and we did a 12-week session. So we started another 12-week session, and then that grew to, I think, I want to say like 90. And then the third one was nearly 200. And so we realized pretty quickly, this could be a full-time thing. And,
Right.
and it allowed us to move back to Washington State. And that was 10 years ago, this January, that we started it. And so it really has just grown, and homeschool, it fits. We had used online classes with our kids when we homeschooled them, especially in the later years. And so it just seemed to fit with a lot of other different families who are trying to figure out, okay, my kid wants to do animation. I don't know how to do that.
Right.
I don't know where to tell them to go.
Uh-huh.
And then they would find us, and then it would be a great partnership.
Yeah. You bring up a really good point. Is there are a lot of those parents, they worry about supporting a child who has artistic or creative interest because they don't have. I mean, I draw stick people at my studio, and I tell my students, I'm like, just look past it. I'll show you exactly what the motion is, but it's just there for reference. So yes, when my daughter started getting interested into art, I enrolled her in a class locally. And I don't know if you know who Mark Kistler is. He used to have a PBS show.
I recognize the name, yeah.
And so he actually lived in our community, and my daughter took classes from him in person, and I had no idea who he was. And it was like a class of 3. And so she had an incredible art training under him. But I was like, well, what do we do after this? I have no idea.
We will continue this conversation after a short break.
Hey there, parents. Are you tired of the babysitter search struggle? Look no further. Welcome to KingdomCareSitters.com, where Christian families connect with like-minded sitters who share their faith.
I was searching for a reliable sitter who understands our faith and family dynamics. With KingdomCareSitters.com, I found the perfect match.
And guess what? You can discover sitter profiles, post jobs, and even schedule and book short-term or long-term care, all on the user-friendly website, KingdomCareSitters.com.
Plus, KingdomCareSitters.com lets you pay securely online. Whether it's date night, work commitments, or just some me time, Kingdom Care's got you covered.
As a sitter, I love being part of this community. I set my own rates, connect with amazing families, and make a difference in their lives.
Are you ready to find your perfect match? Visit KingdomCareSitters.com today, because when faith meets childcare, it's a match made in heaven.
At Thrivent, planning your finances is bigger than money. It's a way to support the people, causes, and community you love, because helping you put your faith into action is at the heart of what we do. Thrivent, where money means more. Connect with us at Thrivent.com.
This is Empowering Homeschool Conversations, provided by SPED Homeschool, a nonprofit that empowers families to home educate diverse learners. To learn more, visit spedhomeschool.com.
A lot of parents just, need that support. So what advice do you have for encouraging kids who think outside of that academic box and need that extra, support to fuel their creative interests?
Yeah, it's an amazing time in terms of resources for kids like that. And so that's great. And I tell them, this idea of loving learning, that goes with you all the way through your career. So first off, just love to learn, and training is essential. And so you can find good training in a lot of different places. But here are the most widely recognized colleges and universities. But that doesn't mean this is the only path, because everybody's different and they have different resources. I know of someone who started off as a security guard at Pixar at night and befriended the animators and started to teach himself to animate. And he is now a Pixar animator. And that was his training.
Yeah.
And so there's no one way, and really even degrees from these more recognized universities aren't guarantees to being successful. So it's that determination and that loving what you're doing, the creativity, leaning into your strengths. If you're a really technical person and you really love computers, well, that opens up 6 more opportunities for you. Whereas if you love to paint and you're really good at it, well, that opens a different 6 opportunities. And so, and then networking, which, relationships, communication, these soft skills that are so valuable in any field, those are different things too. And this is really sometimes one of the hardest ones, because so many creative people, but even homeschoolers, tend to be introverts. And I know I was. And I didn't want to talk to anybody, especially as a teenager. I just wanted to sit there, draw, be in my world. And that's one of the things. It's so hard, but I look and I go, man, it was like ripping, tar or whatever. It just I didn't want to do it, but I had to learn. And so that's one of the ways we set up our classes, was for them to get feedback from professionals, and then have the assignment is set up so that they're meant to turn it in again, that they have to approach the feedback. They have to get the critique. They have to start communicating, understanding, because that's just as important as the art part of it.
Right. Because you don't grow unless you have good feedback. I took over some students from a different studio where I teach, and they had no feedback. And so when they started getting feedback, their parents are like, why are they improving so fast? And I was like, because I'm on them all the time, telling them how to improve. And they just suck it up and they love it. So, but you do have to be in a place where they're willing to receive it. But once a child or anybody realizes that the person critiquing you is on your side and they want you to get better, and this is a safe person to share that with, then they will embrace that and see that they are improving and they want to improve more. And it's truly about that love of learning. And if kids have these gifts and they're maybe struggling academically, this is one way that they can find those successes, get the feedback, and improve, and see that improvement. And it kind of like flows over into other areas.
Yeah. Which, that's exciting for us too, because I didn't really think that through, but it's great to get feedback from parents who say, this has given them such confidence in other subjects and other areas of their life. And we're just so thankful. So that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We, our audience is basically parents who have kids that struggle. And so I'd love for you to tell us a little bit how animation helps students, who struggle with those traditional learning methods, and have maybe some diagnoses like ADHD or dyslexia or executive functioning challenges. What door does art and animation open that sometimes is closed because of traditional education strategies or even subjects?
Yeah. Animation, and this is why I love it, you can learn anything and apply it to animation. Because basically you are creating your own imaginary world. And so you have to write, and you have to understand psychology and performance and acting and thinking, and also art and color theory and structure and design, and now technology, physics. In order to make something appear lifelike, we have to understand the laws of the physical world and gravity and momentum and inertia. And if I'm going to animate an elephant, well, then I have to understand elephant biology and anatomy. So anything you come up with, you can find a new thing to learn. And so usually because we've had a number of different students with learning challenges, and they have a specific sort of bent to where they're already going, or where they're already kind of moving. And our art lets them sort of express that. And, most of them obviously are artistic to begin with. And so to take that and then try to kind of wedge the door open a little bit and say, okay, now think about this and think about adding in this part or adding in this piece. So if they're already really great with, it was one came in and it was just fantastic with sound, and really just could put all of these pieces together. And the sound was great. And the visuals just needed a little bit more understanding of design to communicate more clearly. And to teach him those ways to say, okay, let's give you the visuals that will go with your sound. And then you can express yourself and communicate through this story. And so that's what I love about animation is you can always sort of, it's like clay. You can kind of just nudge it over here and make it specifically for whoever's coming to approach it. And even at the professional level, we all approach it differently. So there's always a unique sort of fingerprint on it.
That's cool. Yeah. So what you just described is you're approaching it from a strength-based, because you're starting with whatever that child is strong at, and then you're building behind the things that can support that strength. So if his strength is in sound, that's where you're going to start. And then the visuals will come in afterwards and be boosted up. And I think we talk about that a lot in our industry, and a lot of parents, sometimes that is, it's hard to make that tangible. It's a great thing to kind of say, yeah, we really should do that, but how do we do that? So that's a really good example of how that would work in real life. So, So you talked about different skills beyond drawing that kids build through animation. What are the big ones?
So the big skills, I always say it takes three things to make a really good character animator. And animation can encompass so many different things, but we're really focusing on characters, bringing characters to life. And so the three pieces of that are acting, because we're the visual performers. And so there might be a voice actor who provides a lot of the performance, but all of the visuals, facial expressions, body language, timing, tempo, all of these different things are the animator. And so you have to be a really good performer. And then the sort of craftsman, or I call it a technician, because in hand-drawn animation, you have to be a really good artist.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're going to do computer animation, well, I've worked with many computer animators who are fantastic, but they're terrible artists, because you have to understand the program and the software. You don't have to draw.
Yes.
And so you have to really understand that extra piece. And then the third piece is what I call a kineticist, but it's basically somebody who understands kinetics and the laws of motion and the laws of the physical world. And so those are the big three. Well, any one of those you could spend a lifetime, really exploring. And so, but usually somebody comes in with one or two as their sort of strengths. And that becomes kind of the launching ground. And then there's all sorts of splinter, paths that can go off of each of these, where, like I said, if you really paint well, then there's 6 other job opportunities that open up that you may not be a character animator, but you may be an art director, or you might be a texture painter, or you might be a visual development artist. And so there's all these different roads that can go in these different directions. If you're very technical and you love the computer, then you can go in, there's really 1,000 different support roads, and not even just support roads, but like key roads, like even what we would call a pipeline developer, which there was a whole team of people that were just building the infrastructure of how a movie, basically the factory floor of the movie, how we transfer information from one department to another. There's just so many different options. A lot of times, I think Walt Disney himself kind of started that mindset of the animator is this sort of magical person.
Right. Yeah.
Does all of it.
You got that little wand like Mickey Mouse.
Right. Right. But if you look at this, especially now, if you look at the end credits and you see all of those names, they're all doing
exactly. That's overwhelming.
Very important jobs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. But you have to like dive in. And I think that's the main thing is you dive in, you start somewhere, because none of us really figure out what we do best until we try a lot of things we don't do well at.
Right.
Or we're like, oh, I'll take that one little piece. And we follow this journey. I found that with my kids too, when we were homeschooling, is we would try something. And I'm like, well, that was almost a good fit. And this is what, really was a good fit. Part of that, well, what can we like explore now that would dive into this area? And to be on that kind of like discovery journey of all those different pathways. And you just don't know where. It's an adventure for sure.
It is. And as you were talking at the very beginning, that skill to be able to do that will take you through your career, because 7 different career paths or you kind of have to do that in today's economy now to be able to say, oh, I see there's a really good opportunity over here, but I'm going to have to take what I'm good at and then add these 3 things to it. And then that might work.
Yeah, that's so true. And technology is changing. So even those people that are kind of, getting to use that software and all that, then there's a new version, or there's something that takes over the industry and you got to relearn it. And so teaching our kids just, how to be flexible, how to adapt and use the knowledge that they have for moving on. So that's so good. Yeah. So, with your students, what is your greatest hope that they walk away with after they do, some or multiple of your classes?
So it's a great question. And I think when I first started, my goal was, and still is, that to give them kind of the enough skills and enough knowledge to be able to tell their own stories in a small, short animated film. And when they do finish, we put those films on our YouTube channel, and you can see, so many of them, and they've, many of them have used those films to then launch into a college program. And that's been kind of the centerpiece of their college portfolio, or they've started, they put it on social media and they've built followings. Yeah. And so that's really still at my heart, is to let them be able to tell stories and express themselves through animation. But then we started realizing that there were some other things that came through, because we do have a number of students who just want to explore artistically. They want to take an art class and they want to explore this idea. And maybe, so I've seen students that have gone on to the medical field, or they've gone on to, technology fields. And one of our very first students, and it's from a family, close friends of our family. He got his first credit for National Geographic for shooting film and videography for National Geographic. And cool. And so we talk every once in a while. He's like, yeah, I still remember some of those little early things that you said, and I apply them to this. And there are other times I get email from students who are like, yeah, I still love animation. I still love the time I spent in your classes. In fact, this has really helped me with this other thing. And so that's really exciting and cool, that I can help somebody see, well, maybe animation's not for me, but there's some of these things that we're talking about that they can apply to life.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It's amazing, when we are teaching kids, I remember like things my dance teacher told me, when I was so young, and it affects you for life. And so to be able to have people alongside us as homeschool parents, to be able to have resources like yours in the homeschooling field, it's invaluable, because we can't always speak those things into our kids' lives where they will listen to us.
Right.
They'll listen to somebody else.
Right.
And so to know that they have a heart the same as them for their kids, and that there's classes out there that will nurture and grow these gifts within them. So just so cool. So what encouragement would you offer parents who feel like, I don't even know if I can foster creativity beyond this classroom, or being able to do, just maybe an animation class, here and there. And what can they do within their home, even if they're not artistic, to foster that so their child will explore that or continue those skills, even if they aren't involved?
Yeah. So, I talk with a lot of parents, and perfectionism comes up a lot. And I know that this isn't, it's very, very common in the artistic fields and the animation field, but I also know it's common in a lot of things, in a lot of different kids. And as you were talking earlier about, we just teach a kid, suck it up, you got to do it. Like, I do think there is a big thing about something that many of them love so much, that they will make a choice to launch themselves forward, with a character trait or something else that scares them. And I think for parents, that idea of encouraging them to say, okay, I can't draw or I can't do this, but I can help you take that step. And I can be support for you to say, part of one of our advanced classes is writing down a schedule and following it. And
yes.
And I can keep you to that schedule. And I know your teacher wants me to. And that's a hard thing for an artist, because I was the same way. Like, again, this is why we put it in there, because this took me 10 years of my career to say, oh, I have to actually embrace a schedule. I don't just get to be creative.
Right. Yeah.
So those are those things that I try to help institute into, being artistic. You'll actually be better if you do this.
Right.
You'll be better if you get feedback, and the parents can really help be a huge support in all of those soft skills. That's what they call them in the business world.
Yeah. I think, we forget very easily that how much those impact. I mean, just keeping a deadline, knowing, when you have to have something done, or, certain drafts, because that does make a better end product. But if you just finish it on the day that it's due, you haven't had the process to have it reviewed. And kids, need to learn that, and that's going to actually make them better in the end. So good. Yeah. So any more particular inspiring stories from students or families that have gone through your course that you want to share?
So, it's so fun to see all the big successes, and we've seen students have their films on streaming services, and we've had students that have gone on to college. We've done this long enough that now some are working professionally, and all that's really cool. We also get the surprising, and it's not surprising anymore, but it was at the beginning. We would get an email from a parent who said, "Hey, thank you so much. My child is trying to figure out what they want to do, and after taking your course, they know they don't want to be an animator. And, and we didn't have to pay this massive college bill.
Yes.
And at first it was like, oh, but then as we talked more with them, it's like, yeah, that they decided maybe it's like your daughter, or maybe it's something else. It's like it's so much harder to make animation than it is to watch animation.
Yes.
And some people see it and go, this is fantastic. I want to dig in. I want to spend all my time doing this. And other people will say, wow, this is taking away all the joy.
Right. Yes.
And so that's been really cool too, to feel like, oh, we're helping out parents, because we were there wondering, where should they go to college? What should they do? And so that's been really, really fun too, to feel like we're really helping parents and we're really helping these families.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I needed to hear that as a teacher, because I own an aerial studio. So I do like Cirque du Soleil, and I teach it. And I have, but I have some students come in, they get their foot in the first wrap and they crumble and they're like, this hurts. And I'm like, yeah, it hurts a lot. And I'm like, so if you want to do that other stuff, you just got to get used to the pain. And, some kids are like, that's not for me, and, So I've started offering like intro classes, because the parents sign them up for 16 weeks and they have to bear through it for 16 weeks. They can't do it. Yeah. But it is good to just say, oh, now I've grasped the reality of what's involved in that. And it's either for me or not for me. But it's good that you don't, that they do get that experience. Because there's always those things that gnaw at us, like when we were younger, like I should have tried that, and so it's best to give your kids the experiences so they don't have that. Oh, I should have tried that, or why didn't I discover this talent in me until I was 40? I don't know, So all great reminders, and for sure.
Yeah.
But so can you talk a little bit about where families need to go for your animation program, how they get started, what are some of the options? I'm going to put your website up on the screen, and then also we're going to share it in the show notes as well.
Oh, great. Yeah. So on the website, we try to give a lot of information about the different types of classes we offer. And we have three groupings of classes. We have animation courses, we have drawing courses, and then we have software courses. And there's obviously a bit of overlap. You can still draw when you're taking animation courses, and you're going to still be using software, but that becomes kind of the primary focus. Okay. And so with those three things, that's a good way to at least get started. And we have recordings only that they can watch that are cheaper, or we have our live classes that have professional feedback. And so all of our graders are professional animators who are working in the field, but still remember being a kid, wanting to try to figure out how to do this. And they're great working. And they're the ones who give a lot of the feedback on the individual assignments. Cool. So on the contact page, my wife's phone number, Kayla, who we run the business together, and she does the administrative side and registration side. If you want to call her and have a conversation, she's great. She actually prefers that, to really get to know and be able to kind of customize the approach to each family.
That's great.
So that's a good way to go too. On our Facebook page, you can see a lot of different student assignments. We post the student assignments, and you can get a sense of the different styles and types of animation. And then, as I said before, on our YouTube channel, and just search the animation course, you can see a bunch of different things I do. We post all of the students' films who finish and complete their film. And then we also have some lessons there, some interviews, different things like that. So we try to kind of keep everything moving around, but our website's a great place to go, and then the contact page we'll have the phone number for Kayla.
That's awesome. Yes. And I think people don't realize how much, especially like businesses like yours that started out by, being a homeschool family, filling a need in the homeschooling community, just how much you are invested in helping other families, and that you want to be part of that process. You want to know what they're looking for, how you can help them, and reaching out is essential. Because like a lot of our kids that have unique paths, it's nice to know that somebody's on your side and they're going to help you work through that. And how can we help you with, what your child is looking to learn? And so that's awesome. Appreciate that. And yes, Kayla, as I've chatted back and forth with her a couple times, and it's been a joy. So
yes. Yeah. And also, I didn't mention our email. If email is easier, then you can do that as well.
Okay.
Kayla at theanimcourse.com is her email, and Chad at theanimcourse.com. So we don't make you type out all of animation, just ANIM. So.
ANIM. Okay. Yeah, so we'll make sure to share that too in the show notes. So awesome. Well, this has been such an amazing conversation. I really appreciate just you sharing with us your heart, your story, and just being there for the homeschool community and sharing your unique talent. It's really cool.
Well, thank you so much. It's always great to be able to talk with other people and other homeschoolers and kind of connect. So
absolutely. Yes, so much so. Well, what an amazing journey from Disney Animation Studios to the homeschool classroom. Chad's story reminds us that creativity is not just a subject, it is a mindset. When we invite our children to create, imagine, and express themselves, we're giving them a powerful tool to learn and connect in ways that go far beyond textbooks. If your child's curious about animation, or if you're looking for a fresh way to make learning become alive, I really do highly encourage you to check out Chad's online animation courses. We've included the link in our show notes, so it makes it easy for you to find that. And as always, thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Empowering Homeschool Conversations. If today's discussion inspired you, please like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to check out our full library of episodes and reels on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or your favorite podcasting platform. And a special thank you to you, Chad, for sharing your artistic talents and your heart for homeschooling. Until next time, keep nurturing creativity, leaning into grace, and discovering the joy of learning alongside your kids. Bye, everybody. God bless, and we'll see you next time.
I want to take just a second to thank the team at Life Audio for their partnership with us on this podcast. If you go to lifeaudio.com, you'll find dozens of other faith-centered podcasts in their network. They've got shows about prayer, Bible study, parenting, and more.
This has been Empowering Homeschool Conversations.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for working everything out for my good. Help me trust in your perfect plan. Amen.
Father, thank you for loving and caring for me.
With Christian prayer meditation, you can pray along to prayers based on specific topics. Go to lifeaudio.com or search your favorite podcast app for Christian prayer meditation. You can also download the Abide app for biblical meditations at abide.com.